Welcome to Standby Gazillion, where we bring you the best romantic drama stories. Let's dive into today's tale of secret crushes and academic rivals. I was ranked second in our grade, and after breaking up with my boyfriend who was first place, I desperately wanted to surpass him. But after I finally beat him, this cold, aloof school prince who used to be third suddenly dominated the top spot. I was still stuck in second place forever. After giving up in despair, I suddenly heard the cold school prince sobbing, even more desperately than me. Why did she stop studying? Is she hinting that I should voluntarily give up, compete, and stop dreaming about being the main boyfriend? If she hadn't broken up with him, I'd be willing to stay third forever. Even though controlling my scores to stay third makes my heart bleed. It's so painful. The class rep has been studying so hard lately. He must have a crush on her, right? Why does the scumbag get to come keep with me? I equally hate everyone in this school. They all want to steal her from me. Why won't she kiss me yet? Isn't the second place supposed to be the first place's reward? Are you crying? I stopped and turned to look at Adrian sitting in the corner. Adrian lifted his unusually pale, gloomy and cold indifferent face. His dark gaze cut across my face like a knife. His voice was cold and flat without any emotion. There wasn't a trace of desperation or helplessness. I shook my head and tapped my forehead. I must be going crazy. From wanting to surpass Adrian so badly that I was hearing things, I turned back to my seat, not noticing how Adrian's gaze behind me instantly became intense and greedy. It was a two-person desk. Class was about to start, but my seat partner Jake hadn't returned yet. He was still helping the class beauty, Sophie, with college prep problems. My heart sank with an indescribable sadness since our breakup. Except during actual class time, Jake kept his distance from me to avoid making Sophie uncomfortable. After a while, the homeroom teacher entered and announced seat changes. The class immediately became noisy. I clenched my fists, pressed my lips together, and let out an unhappy breath. What I dreaded most was finally happening. Before college entrance exams, after every bi-monthly test, the teacher would rearrange all seats based on test rankings, from highest to lowest. Top-ranking students got to choose their preferred seats, and the first-place student had the special privilege of choosing their desk mate. Ever since breaking up with first-place Jake 2 months ago, I studied desperately, wanting to surpass him and become first in our grade. A big reason was that I couldn't accept separating from Jake like this. We've been desk mates for 3 years with only these last few months left. Call me pathetic or stupid, but I just couldn't let go of Jake. But unexpectedly, after I pushed Jake out of first place, Adrian, who was originally third, suddenly showed incredible improvement. No matter the test size, he dominated first place, with near-perfect scores that I couldn't catch up to, no matter how hard I tried. I gave up in frustration and despair. Logically, first-place Adrian should choose his seat and desk mate first. But Adrian kept his eyes down and didn't move, his face cold and indifferent. He always sat in his dark corner. The teacher then asked me to choose my seat. My fingers twitched, but Jake suddenly stood up, stepping past me to say directly, "Teacher, I only want Sophie as my desk mate. Sorry for speaking early, but I'm afraid certain people won't have any shame," and refused to let things end peacefully. Jake lifted his thin eyelids to look at me, his tone mocking and contemptuous. "Charlotte, if I hadn't spoken first, you were planning to choose me as your desk mate, weren't you? Why bother? This desperate clinging is really degrading and annoying." Snickers arose around us. My face turned deathly pale, burning with shame. In my embarrassment, I remembered Adrian's broken inner voice I'd heard earlier, collapsed and resentful. What's the point of letting me choose seats when she won't even look at me? She clearly doesn't acknowledge my legitimate status and rights. She said, "First place and second place are naturally meant to be together." Why is she looking for other third and fourth wheels? I don't want to make things difficult for her. Taking anger out on your lover isn't the behavior of a proper main girlfriend. Maybe I'm too greedy, actually hoping she'd be my desk mate. She doesn't know I love her. She just think I'm crazy. I took a deep breath, calmed down, and pointed at Adrian. No, the desk mate I want to choose is Adrian. The classroom fell into strange silence. Everyone knew Adrian extremely disliked people and the world in general. But with his noble and powerful family background, even teachers didn't dare force him, only asking gently for his opinion. Adrian abruptly stood up, coldly grabbed his books, and walked to the hallway saying whatever. This indifferent attitude made me doubt again whether I'd imagined hearing wrong. Adrian couldn't possibly have made those broken-hearted sounds. But looking carefully, I suddenly noticed Adrian was holding his books upside down. After 5 seconds, Adrian walked back in, his cold gaze falling on me from top to bottom. Should I move over there? I noticed his fingertips curled up, almost tearing holes in his panty. Adrian and I became deskmates, and Jake got his wish to be Sophie's deskmate. Sophie's originally smug expression instantly became shocked and stunned when she saw Adrian beside me, then turned unwilling and resentful. I was a bit stunned, feeling uneasy. No way did I switch to another deskmate, who also had an ambiguous relationship with the class beauty. I poked Adrian with my pen. Adrian's dark pupils immediately looked over his long, thick lashes, trembling. I actually saw a hint of long-awaited resentment in them. I was stunned by the strikingly beautiful face, my heart skipping a beat, my voice slightly hoarse. Do you know Sophie? Adrian's eyes immediately became alert, but he expressionlessly shook his head. I breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't want to perform another ridiculous scene of fighting over a deskmate with Sophie. Anything else? Adrian asked, lightly but coldly. I shook my head and bent down to continue working on problems. From the corner of my eye, I noticed Adrian had somehow opened the class roster, squinting as he sharply examined Sophie's name and grade information. Adrian's voice echoed in my ears again, panicked, helpless, nervous, confused with a hint of defeated hoarseness. Why did she suddenly ask me about this person? Sophie is a girl, and she's the girl who stole her ex-boyfriend. Why is she so concerned about her? Sophie's grades are terrible. Plain appearance, weak and loose skin. I assess she poses no threat to me whatsoever. But she specifically mentioned her. She must be hinting at something. I'm so stupid, completely unable to understand my lover's thoughts. I'm such a failure as the main girlfriend. People who can't understand their partner's thoughts should all die. Listening to Adrian's greasingly outrageous inner voice, I was afraid he might do something horrifying next. I quickly put down my pen and patted his hand, wanting to explain. But the moment I touched Adrian's hand, he suddenly stiffened, his waist rigidly straight, letting out a muffled blue cry. His eyes became unfocused, pupils dilated. Fine beads of hot sweat instantly covered his entire cold, restrained face. I almost thought my hand hadn't touched his hand, but his most sensitive spot. I pulled my hand back in shock. I felt a bit got lost, but looking at Adrian's face soaked in heat, I couldn't help swallowing. Looking down further, there was an abnormal dark stain on his blue school pants. I froze. Adrian sensed my shock, maintained his composure, and coldly supported his tall body, his voice relatively calm. Sorry, I need to use the restroom. But his retreating figure was panicked and frantic, like it was about to shatter. I reached out to wipe the sweat drop Adrian had left on the test paper, still warm. As soon as Adrian left his seat, the class rep rushed over with his test paper. Charlotte, I finally caught you alone. The class rep was almost crying with joy. I was stunned, only then realizing that since we'd switched seats, Adrian had been like a guard dog protecting his territory, constantly stationed at his spot, unwilling to leave even for a moment. The class rep seized every second task. Although Adrian was first in grade, no one dared ask him questions or even approach him. After finishing the last math bonus problem, Adrian appeared in the doorway, his dark gaze silently staring at the class rep. He had cleaned himself up, noble and composed. Messy black hair fell down, a few strands sticking to his pale face. His lips were red, teeth white. His collar buttons properly fastened, hiding his delicate collarbone. Restrained and aloof, cold and ethereal like a bright moon. But his inner voice was completely opposite. He stood at the door like a silent phantom. His face was an expressionless mask of absolute perfection, but the voice screaming in my head was a chaotic symphony of jealousy. He is standing too close. Why is the class rep breathing the air that belongs to my deskmate? I should have never gone to the restroom. I left my beloved alone for 3 minutes and the wolves have descended. I am a failure. I should just throw myself out of the window. No, I cannot do that, because then who would protect her from these mediocre vultures? I could not help but press my lips together to stop a smile from breaking through. Adrian walked toward us with slow and measured steps. Every step seemed to carry the weight of an approaching storm. The class rep visibly trembled and took a quick step back from my desk. Adrian did not even look at him. He simply pulled out his chair and sat down with a chilling grace. "Are you done?" Adrian asked the class rep. His voice was like crushed ice against glass. The class rep frantically nodded and clutched his test paper to his chest. "Yes, I was just asking Charlotte a quick question. I am leaving right now." The class rep scurried away like a frightened rabbit. Adrian pulled out a clean notebook from his desk. He opened it with long and elegant fingers. "You do not need to answer his foolish questions. It is a waste of your valuable time." Adrian did not look at me while he spoke. His eyes were fixed on the blank page in front of him. But his inner voice was wailing a completely different tune. "Talk to me. Please talk to me instead. I can explain any math problem in the world to you. I will give you all my notes. I will write them in blood if you ask. Just do not look at other men. It makes my heart physically ache. I am so fragile when it comes to her." I let out a soft sigh and leaned closer to him. But the math problem was actually quite difficult. I was not entirely sure how to solve it myself. Adrian suddenly stopped writing. His pen hovered over the paper for a fraction of a second. "Which problem?" he asked softly. I pointed to the last question on the mock exam. Adrian shifted his chair closer to mine. The faint scent of mint and cold rain washed over me. It was intoxicating and strangely comforting. He took my pen from my hand. His fingers accidentally brushed against mine. I heard a sharp intake of breath in my mind. She touched me again. I cannot breathe. Her skin is so soft. I want to freeze time and live in this exact second forever. I must remain calm. If I faint right now, she will think I am pathetic. A main boyfriend does not faint. I watched as a faint blush crept up the back of his pale neck. He began to write out the solution on my paper. His handwriting was sharp and beautiful. The trick is to isolate the variable before applying the derivative. His explanation was concise and incredibly clear. "Do you understand?" he asked while finally turning his head to look at me. Our faces were suddenly very close. I could see the golden flecks hidden inside his dark irises. "Yes, I understand now. You are much better at explaining things than Jake." The moment the name left my lips, the atmosphere shifted. Adrian's eyes darkened instantly. The air around him turned freezing cold. His inner voice exploded with a terrifying intensity. "Jake. That disgusting name. Why is she still thinking about him? Is he still in her heart? I want to tear him apart. I want to erase every memory she has of him. I am the first place now. I am the one sitting beside her. Why does she still compare me to that piece of trash? I am going to cry. I am actually going to cry in front of the whole class." I panicked as I realized my mistake. I had only mentioned Jake casually to compliment Adrian. I quickly grabbed Adrian's sleeve. "I am so glad you are my desk mate now. You are the best." Adrian froze completely. He stared at my hand resting on his sleeve. His inner monologue went completely silent for a long moment. Then a single, echoing thought rang out in my head. "She said I am the best. I have won. I have conquered the universe. I am the happiest man alive." He slowly turned his attention back to the notebook. His face remained perfectly stoic. "If you have more questions, ask me. Do not waste time on inferior minds." I nodded eagerly, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. For the next few weeks, our dynamic settled into a strange and wonderful rhythm. Adrian remained the untouchable ice prince to the rest of the school. No one dared to approach our desk. We existed in our own little isolated bubble. I studied relentlessly, determined to keep my second-place rank. Adrian quietly helped me whenever I got stuck. He never offered his help aggressively. He would just slide a piece of paper over to me with the perfect solution written out. Sometimes he would leave a small box of strawberry milk on my desk before I arrived. When I thanked him, he would just shrug and say he bought it by mistake. But his inner voice would be screaming with joy. "She drank it. She likes the strawberry one. I will buy the factory. I will make sure she has strawberry milk every single day of her beautiful life." I found myself looking forward to coming to school every morning. The pain of my breakup with Jake had completely vanished. Jake, however, was not doing so well. Sophie's constant demands for attention were dragging down his study time. During the next mock exam, Jake's rank dropped from 2nd to 5th. Sophie dropped even further down the list. When the rankings were posted on the bulletin board, the hallway was packed. I stood in the crowd, looking up at my name. I was still firmly in 2nd place. Adrian was at the very top, his score practically flawless. "Congratulations," a mocking voice sneered behind me. I turned around and saw Jake glaring at me. Sophie was clinging to his arm, looking incredibly annoyed. You must be so proud of yourself, Charlotte. Riding on Adrian's coattails to keep your rank. Jake's tone was bitter and loud enough for everyone to hear. The surrounding students quieted down, eager for drama. I felt a flash of anger, but before I could speak, a tall figure stepped in front of me. Adrian blocked my view of Jake entirely. His broad shoulders shielded me from the harsh whispers of the crowd. Her scores are her own. Adrian's voice was deadly quiet, yet it carried across the silent hallway. She earned every single point through hard work. Unlike some people who blame their spectacular failures on their choice of company, Jake's face turned a violent shade of red. Who are you calling a failure? Adrian tilted his head slightly, his dark eyes looking down at Jake with pure disdain. The person ranking 5th. You are a disappointment to the top tier. Do not speak to my desk mate again. Your mediocrity might be contagious. Sophie gasped and stomped her foot. You are so arrogant, Adrian. You think you are so special just because you are smart. Adrian did not even acknowledge her existence. He simply turned his back on them and looked at me. Let us go back to class. The air here is polluted. He gently placed his hand on the small of my back and guided me away. My heart pounded against my ribs. Through the mind-reading connection, I heard the absolute chaos inside his head. I touched her back. I am protecting her. I am a knight. Did I look cool? Was I too mean? No, he deserved it for disrespecting my queen. I hope she thinks I am cool. Please think I am cool. I looked up at his sharp jawline and perfectly styled hair. You are really cool back there, I whispered. Adrian tripped over his own feet. He caught himself instantly, his face flushing a deep, embarrassed pink. It was nothing, he muttered softly. I just stated facts. We returned to our seats, and the atmosphere between us felt incredibly warm. The final countdown to the college entrance exams began. The pressure in the classroom was suffocating. Everyone was buried under mountains of practice papers. I was studying so hard that I often forgot to eat lunch. One afternoon, I fell asleep right on top of my chemistry textbook. I woke up feeling something heavy and warm draped over my shoulders. It was Adrian's uniform jacket. I blinked sleepily and looked to my right. Adrian was reading a thick foreign language book. He looked up when he heard me stir. You were shivering, he said flatly. Thank you, I murmured, pulling the jacket tighter around myself. It smelled exactly like him. You need to eat, he stated, sliding a neat, warm bento box onto my desk. I ordered extra from the chef. I cannot finish it. I knew it was a lie. His inner voice was practically singing a lullaby. She looks like an angel when she sleeps. I asked the chef to make all her favorite foods. I hope the meat is tender enough. If she gets sick from studying too hard, I will burn down the school. I must make sure she stays healthy. I opened the box and found an elaborate arrangement of perfectly cooked steak and vegetables. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. Adrian, why are you so good to me? The question slipped out before I could stop myself. Adrian froze, his eyes widening slightly. His carefully constructed mask slipped for just a second. Because we are desk mates, he answered softly. Because you are acceptable company. Because I love you. The last sentence was not spoken aloud. It echoed loudly in my mind, raw and desperate. I have loved you since the first day of high school. When you smiled at me in the rain. When you offered me your umbrella. You do not remember, but I do. I will remember it until I die. I stared at him, completely stunned by the revelation. He had loved me for 3 years. While I was chasing after Jake, Adrian was quietly watching me from the shadows. He had deliberately kept his scores at 3rd place so he could stay in my class without threatening my rank. He only took 1st place because Jake had hurt me, and he wanted to destroy Jake's pride. All the puzzle pieces fell into place. My heart ached with a profound, overwhelming guilt and affection. I reached out and gently grabbed his hand. This time, he did not pull away. He trembled slightly, but his fingers slowly intertwined with mine. Adrian, I said, my voice trembling. After the entrance exams, let us go to the same university. Adrian's breath hitched. His dark eyes locked onto mine, searching for any sign of a joke. Are you sure? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. You do not have to say things just to pity me. I shook my head and squeezed his hand tightly. It is not pity. I want to be with you. His inner voice completely short-circuited. There were no words, just a blinding wave of pure, unfiltered euphoria. The tension that had always tightened his shoulders finally vanished. He let out a long, shaky breath and nodded. Okay, we will go together. The day of the college entrance exam finally arrived. The summer heat was intense, but I felt incredibly calm. Adrian walked me to my examination hall. He handed me a transparent pencil case filled with perfectly sharpened pencils. "Do not panic," he said smoothly. "You know all the answers. I will be waiting for you outside." I smiled brightly and nodded. When the final bell rang 2 days later, signaling the end of high school, a massive cheer erupted across the campus. Papers were thrown into the air like snow. I ran out of the building and scanned the crowded courtyard. I found Adrian standing beneath a large oak tree. He looked like a beautiful painting, bathed in the golden afternoon sunlight. I did not hesitate. I ran straight toward him and threw my arms around his neck. Adrian caught me effortlessly, his strong arms wrapping securely around my waist. He buried his face in my hair, inhaling deeply. "It is over," he murmured. "We did it." "Yes," I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. I looked up at him, my heart overflowing. "So, does the first-place student get to claim his prize?" Adrian's eyes darkened with a sudden, intense heat. He slowly leaned down, his gaze fixed on my lips. "I am taking my legitimate reward." He kissed me softly at first, then with a desperate, crushing intensity. It felt like 3 years of hidden longing pouring into a single moment. I kissed him back, pouring all my newfound love into the embrace. In the distance, I saw Jake and Sophie watching us, their faces pale and defeated. But they no longer mattered. They were just ghosts from a past I had completely left behind. The results came out a month later. Adrian was the top scorer in the entire city. I ranked a close second. We both received acceptance letters from the top university in the country. As we walked hand in hand through the park with our letters, Adrian's inner voice was finally quiet. He did not need to scream his insecurities anymore. He knew he was my main boyfriend, today, tomorrow, and forever. Wow, what a sweet and dramatic journey. It is always so satisfying to see the loyal, quiet protector get the girl in the end. Adrian's crazy inner monologues were hilarious, but showed just how much he genuinely cared for Charlotte. It teaches us that sometimes the people who love us the most are the ones silently supporting us from the sidelines. Jake totally got what he deserved, and I am so glad Charlotte realized who truly valued her. What did you guys think of Adrian's secret crush? Let me know.